In this segment, we're going to pull together all the information from the other segments and strike out on creating a couple of basic projects. The first of these projects is going to be a notepad that you can use to train yourself to use a Wacom tablet. I have found this to be the most effective method for learning Wacom tablets. So to begin, we're going to start a new canvas like we just did before. File, new. I'm going to stick with 6 by 6 by 300. Create. It's our fresh canvas. We are going to put 7 layers. Now, mind you, you can name these if you want to. Double-clicking on it. You can name these however you want. There's a theme here. Okay. You guys don't need to watch me label layers. It's just good for you to know that you can. Okay. So we've got our layers set up so we can begin to work. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to group all of the layers that we're not using right now into the same groups. We're going to click on the first one to select it, the top one. Come all the way down to second from the bottom. Click on that by holding the Shift key. That will select them all together. And then you're going to Control G on your keyboard. Control G will group them. Now you have a group which you can turn on, turn off, and all those layers are available inside when you hit the radio button on the left side. Now that we have taken care of creating our layers, the next thing we need to do is set up a grid. To do that, we go to View, Show, Grid. Then we go to Edit, Preferences, Guides, Grids, and Slices. Here's where you can set the color of your grid, the kind of line that you use. What we want to do is to set a grid line. We have right now, it's a 6 by 6. So if we do every quarter inch and subdivisions to 0. And hit OK. Okay, so subdivision 1. Sorry. That's our grid. This grid is going to make it possible for us to do our practices. We need to set up a color of gray to draw with. The way the color field works, sliding this slider on the right changes the hue, and then within the hue block you can pick any color you want, and you can see it changing right there. You can choose any color you want. I recommend a dark gray, which is all the way, when you go all the way to the left-hand side edge, that's monochrome, that's black and white. So you can slide up and down between different colors of gray. Okay, I would go with a nice medium dark gray, like so. Next thing we need to do is set up a brush. For your brush, I'm going to have you use the hard round. I'm going to have you set it, let's try 10 pixels. A little smaller. Set it to 7 pixels. Now you can write. And writing is what the purpose of this is going to be. The way to train yourself to use a Wacom tablet is to practice writing every day. And when your own handwriting looks familiar to you, you have mastered the Wacom tablet. If your handwriting looks like your handwriting, then your drawing will look like your drawing. Now, I find this painful. And I'm pretty good at it. So if I'm finding it painful, it tells you something. It tells you that I'm a person who can't draw with my paper straight. Never have been able to. Fortunately, Photoshop has a workaround for that. If you push the R shortcut, it allows you to rotate your canvas. So if I hold down R, I can set the angle of my canvas to anything I want it to be. And once I've done that, writing will become much more natural. Okay, I'm going to go back to my B for my brush, right here. B is my shortcut. I'm going to pan, holding down the Shift key, so I can get over to here. I'm going to decide where I want to start my writing. I think I'll start it 3 over and 3 down, right here. So here we go. And if I make a mistake, I hit Control Z. I like wearing a glove when I draw. Eight pixels feels big to me. Okay? Don't like, because I wasn't looking. Feels big to me. Okay, I can actually set to 7. Take it down to 5. And I have dropped it down to 5, which I like. This is going to be what you're going to do. Every day, you're going to write a paragraph, whatever you want. You can write the alphabet over and over if you want to. You can write how much my class bugs you. You can play with that. Rotate the canvas until you find a good angle for yourself. That works for me. Okay? There's no rule. You can try playing with smoothing. Point is to just use your brush. I'm going to set smoothing to 15%. It makes my writing smoother. But it slows me down some. Okay? Now to get my canvas back to where it was, I can hit the rotate key. Again, get it close to where I want it, and then hold Shift, and it'll lock. Okay? That's it. Once you've done that for that day, open your group. Take Friday, insert it between Saturday and Sunday. Take Saturday and drag it outside of the group. Close the group. Before you do that, turn off Friday. which you could also have done by just turning off that group. Okay, and once you've done that, lo and behold, I'm off again. Okay, this is a serious assignment. You will need to turn it in. Two weeks worth. So this gave us a chance to create layers, move layers around, turn layers on and off, set up a brush that we like, play with some smoothing, set up a grid, rotate the canvas, plus work with all the other things we wanted to work with, zooming in, zooming out, pan, and rotate we've already talked about. Okay, so that is the first assignment we're going to be working on to apply everything you've learned about Photoshop from these videos. Except for you have to know how to save it. You can hit File, Save, or you can hit Control S, like all Windows programs. You can name it whatever you want. But make sure that you put your name in the file somewhere so I know whose it is. Hit Save. It'll hit you with this typical thing saying, do you want to keep it compatible with other versions? Just say, fine, I'm happy. And then to close this, Control W. And you'll see it now shows up right here on my recent files. Going to create another file. Another new canvas. 6x6x300. Create. And this time we don't want grids. So, go back to View, hit Show, go to Grid, and uncheck it. For this assignment, you need two layers. I want you to label the bottom layer tracing paper. I want you to label the top layer drawing. Okay? So we have the basics for a new assignment, but we need to bring in an image. The point of this exercise is how to trace in Photoshop. So go to File, go to Open. We'll all be using the same image. So it's called MukaRef. And there it is. I want you to Control A to select everything, or you could do it here. Select all. And then I want you to copy. And then I want you to close this out, Control W. Now I want you to paste this into your file. You can hit Paste, or Control V is the shortcut. And there it is. Now, I made a mistake. I let this paste into my previous layer. I don't want that. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to select my background and paste right above my background. Remember, it pastes in above the thing you have selected. The drawing was the topmost, so it actually made it part of that layer. You can name that Mucha if you want. Alphonse Mucha is a brilliant Art Nouveau poster artist from the turn of the century. Now we need to create our tracing paper. To create the tracing paper, we're going to select all, and then we're going to get our paint bucket, which is right here. You can click on it or hit G, which is the shortcut. And then we need to switch to the background color. We need to switch to white. You can do that by tapping this little arrow corner or by Shift X and then tap with your mouse. And it will fill that entire layer with white. Now you want to deselect, so you can hit Control D or select deselect. So now you have your tracing paper and your drawing. I'm going to reactivate the brush. Now, this tracing paper doesn't look much like tracing paper, and that's because we haven't played with the opacity. You're going to slide that down until Mucha's artwork shows through in a pretty frosty way. Yeah, 53% is what I like. Going to go back to create a drawing pencil, so we want to shift these back and forth again to get the foreground color back in front. So Shift X or tap on the corner. Pick a nice medium gray again. And for this drawing, I'm not going to want to use the hard round. I'm going to want to use soft round, pressure, opacity, and flow. You'll recall that was the fussier or fancier version of soft round. I think it's going to create too fine of a line for what I want to do. So I'm going to make it 10 pixels. So now that I have my brush in place and ready to go, I'm going to go to my drawing layer and begin to trace. I want you to play with using different levels of pressure. Press hard sometimes, then press soft. I want you to play with rotating your canvas. I want you to play with your eraser. Notice how that, because I'm using the eraser, it doesn't cover up any of the reference drawing underneath. Okay. Try zooming in. Try using a smaller brush if you want to. I want you to play with no smoothing so that you feel the difference. I think you get the idea. Rotate Shift. Every once in a while, take your tracing paper full opaque so you can get an idea of what your drawing is looking like. This is also an assignment. How much do you have to do? I would like you to spend a good hour on this. So trace on it, get as much done as you can, and submit it. All right? Those are the two projects. This gives you a good starting point to get familiar with the program and what it's like to draw and paint. Oh, I almost forgot. If you have a straight line, Photoshop. If you start your line and then hold down the Shift key, it's like using a ruler. To do a diagonal, start and then end with the Shift key. Now, that is harder to do with a stylus because it's pressure sensitive. If I just hit Shift each time I click with a mouse, I can get nice straight angular lines as well. And that's really it. Zoom out to fit is Control-0. And you would save this. Tracing practice with your name is as good as any. And that's it. This finishes up the Introduction to Photoshop video series.